Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of D-Day. I think it's quite fitting that an airplane is going over. I've had a lot of serendipity, excuse me, during these two videos. I had a sneezing person, but I also had things remind me of the way D-Day was. D-Day, think about it. Think about how important air support is today, is in today's military world for success, and has been for a very long time, and was frankly in World War II. There was no air support in those when those Marines and Army and Navy guys landed on the beaches at Normandy. There was no air support. It was ships, and they had artillery support, limited artillery support from those ships, but it was mostly just, we're gonna throw a whole bunch of young men. And it's hard because I get emotional because fucking 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you're done. And they knew this. These guys, the strategists behind this onslaught, knew, hey, if 20% of these men make it, we get a toehold in Western France on the beaches of Normandy, and we can start pushing the Germans back, and we can win this war. And sorry, I get emotional because I can't imagine. Can't fucking imagine. Sorry, I'm going to sidebar a little bit about the same theories went on with the atomic bomb. Did we really need it in Japan? Most historians say yes. It was horrific. We dropped them on civilians, killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. But knowing the Japanese culture and knowing that we were starting to, how shall I say, encroach upon their land. I mean, we had taken Okinawa, we had taken many southern islands where they had airfields, and now all of a sudden they're thinking we may bomb Tokyo, and we maybe could have. We definitely were starting to surround that quadrant, the four main islands that make up Japan. And so, decisions had to be made, horrific decisions. But the thought is, when you have an emperor and you are a kamikaze type of society and it's all about honor and saving face, you're probably going to keep fighting to the last man. And so that decision was made. Excuse me. Geez, sorry. That decision was made. We better drop. The first one, that's why the drop, many of you may or may not know, the reason we dropped 2 was because, think about it, it's 1945. People didn't believe that the first one happened, and everything was destroyed, so there are no communications to prove or disprove that the first one happened. Like, okay, well, let's get some people to watch the second one. And they did a second one. And then finally Japan's like, oh, holy shit, they did. This isn't bullshit. They discovered how to make and drop an atomic weapon, and they could do this to Tokyo. We surrender. Or there will be no more Japanese people. So, back to the Western Front. And like I say, I try not to get emotional. Anytime I think about war and how young the men are that fight it, and the whole "there but for the grace of God, go I" type of statements. Yeah, I mean, so it was. We're gonna send thousands of kids, trained kids, somewhat well trained. We did our best. This war was somewhat of a surprise, I guess, and we got a lot of kids here in America that are willing to fight for this country. And at that point, I think that's an argument you can make. For World War II, at least in my opinion, was the last war that the Americans could make where I'm defending my country. I think every war since then has kind of been BS. It's been, whether it's a communist threat or a interests threat, i.e. oil, right? Economic threat, whatever. But the actual, Hawaii, when it was bombed in 1941 by the Japanese, it was U.S. territory. It was not a state yet. It became a state in 1959, I believe, maybe 60. I'm pretty sure 59. Here goes another airplane. But I'll give it that a second. It's a pretty loud one. Thank you. Airplane intermission. So what was I getting at? Sorry. I had a little brain fart there. Let's get, like I said, like I was saying in the last episode, we're headed towards, a decision that needs to be made, and maybe that decision saved lives as well, right? Despite the fact that we were throwing young men into a fucking meat grinder. And we knew, generals had to know, a certain percentage of you are going to survive. I can't remember what, it's been posted somewhere. It's been, I know that's there's a fact there. There's a number there. I want to say 20%. Maybe it was better than that. Maybe it was worse. But hundreds, thousands died on the shores of that beach to take over that beachhead and push the Germans back towards eastern France and eventually into Germany. Like I say, just so just the parallel about the atomic bomb. I guess that was our Western Front's atomic bomb, for lack of a better term. Um, and so here we are. And I know I just said something about Memorial Day a few days ago, and that was a few days late. And you know how I feel about military and the military-industrial complex. But these were the last men, I think, that really believed in it in their hearts. I think most people do. They believe they're fighting for their country and doing something right for their country. But I think that was the most realistic excuse, I want to say, or reason to go to war, was because, okay, did you see what happened at Pearl Harbor? Okay, these fuckers are for real. I always wonder about that too. Did Hitler? I got to think that Hitler did not want that to happen. I think he was looking for us to not get in the war. He was not doing great against the Russians and the British, but he was doing a hell of a lot better than he was before we got in it. He knew the might of the American military. He knew that we were sending jeeps and tanks through the Lend-Lease program to the Russians on the Russian front, and that was part of the reason he was getting his ass kicked in there. That and other things like a horrific winter in 1942, another bad winter in 1943, Scorched Earth policy, intelligently implemented by the Russians. So there was nothing, when the Russians left a place, it was completely burned down to the ground. And the Nazis could not use any of the Russians, what I want to say, stuff. I can't think of words. That's always good when you're doing a video. But they couldn't use any of their supplies or natural resources against the Russians. There's nothing there. It was either winter, it was bleak, man, or burned shit. So I know I haven't done D-Day a lot of justice. I just know that it's hard. War is awful, and I wish we would learn from it. It makes me sad that it seems like we often don't. I know that I visited Europe, and I know that they refer to the First War as the Great War, because that was even more horrific than World War II. The Americans, of course, we went in there and helped out in World War I, not to the extent we did in World War II. I think we lost maybe 100,000 in World War I and like 400,000 in World War II. I'd have to check those numbers. I'm pretty close, I know that. But for the Europeans, they saw the technology of World War I, where we now had tanks. We now had long-range bombs. I'm not going to call them missiles, but things that could go very far and kill people. And the problem was, we're only 17, the war started in 1914, we're only 14, 15 years removed from the 19th century, where people were fighting on horseback. Or look at, it's only 50 years removed from the Civil War here in the United States, where people were walking right up with a musket and just lining up and blowing each other away. 50 years later, a lot of people still trying to employ those tactics in the face of tanks and artillery and 50 caliber machine guns. So yeah, pretty horrific stuff. That's the reason the Europeans, I'm not going to say celebrate, but more memorialize World War I more than World War II, and we're kind of the opposite, because it was more horrific for us. World War II was. We lost way more guys. We have footage of it, which is amazing, amazing and horrific. And I don't know. You do have to thank those guys. It's an amazing, horrific loss, but for the guys that survived it, we only have a handful left. And there's another thing, and I try not to make this too political, but these are the guys we got to believe that saw the concentration camps at the end of that war, and know that the Holocaust was not a hoax of any kind. It's a big deal that we listen to those guys, the few things they have to say, we hold on to all that footage of what they've told us, and we understand. Sorry, I get emotional again about the horrors of war, and to hopefully learn from it, and not fucking send 18 to 20-year-olds to die that horrific death. That's all I got. That's a lot. It's a two-parter. Hopefully I showed you I know some stuff. even though I didn't know a ton about D-Day, but hopefully we learn from it, and raise your glass to not only the military people, but those boys who died in the name of freedom. All right, thanks, you guys. See you next time.